Hey guys, this is DFD, aka Dark Frozen Deaths, back with another Kamihime project video. Now, this one, I meant to do this sooner, but unfortunately I was unable to because some partying stuff and whatnot. You know, it's been recently New Year's and everything, and then on top of that too, it's kind of hard to record when people are being loud. But, anyways, this event, it's, a water event, and some of you may recognize the Adon because we just had a reprint of her. Well, this happens to be a completely different version of her, which is going to be, in my opinion, a better version of her Adon abilities. But this event's a raid event, and some of you that's already been doing it have probably noticed that there's a few things different from other raid events that we've had before. So I'm going to go into this. But first and foremost, because this is a raid event, you can go in, you can start your own raid, you can jump into somebody else's. You don't have to do this event alone, so unless you're specifically aiming for the bonus gacha tickets for the raid gacha, you can literally just leech off of somebody else's events if need be. So you don't have to do this all by yourself, but my suggestion is to do both things in order to really speed things up. But same typical thing, go into standard, you get materials for expert, go into expert, you get materials for Ragnarok. There's storyline where you can get magic jewels. But anyways, going into the fights themselves, each fight, well, I should say standards should be treated differently from the other ones. But the main kick with that is that in this standard, she has 850,000 HP. She will immediately perform combo attacks every single turn, which kind of counteracts what our ability has said. And remember that, because it's going to be a key mechanic in every single fight. What's going to be different for this fight is the fact that whenever she's in normal mode, her burst is going to do 5 times random damage and actually recover quite a bit of HP for this level of difficulty, which is 30,000. If anybody's struggling with this fight, you'll either be doing about that much damage or less. So, that said, if you're unable to out damage that, then you probably would need to call in for help, because of the simple fact that that would be very tricky to get past. And for raging, she will do AoE damage and put overheat to herself. So, that's what that basically is. It's just a buff to herself. And given that she's guaranteed to combo you, that's a problem. So you have to keep that in mind. Now, when it comes to experts, this is where things get a little bit different. Most raid events have only one enemy. This is one of the ones that has only 2. And then there's an interesting little kick to it as well. Now, she will guarantee triple attack. It's not just a combo attack anymore, it's guaranteed triple attack. But it still counts, basically. She's going to never do a single hit. Now, when it comes to her burst, the normal one is now a single target blind for 3 turns. And the raging is going to be an AoE water damage plus putting rampage on the whole team. So instead of her focusing on you taking damage, she's going instead of focusing on you taking damage over time, she's going to instead try to buff herself. Now, the kicker is that Golem Helper. That one is going to instantly fill up its orbs every time they're not full. That is a very troublesome part with that one. And then on top of that, it's going to deal restraint every time it does a burst in normal mode. Raging is going to just AoE damage. Restraint is very, very bad because of the fact that it is an ability that can prevent you from taking turns. And even if it doesn't, it's going to flat out prevent you from bursting. Restraint's very, very bad, and it lasts for 5 turns Even though it's a single target, with some bad luck, you can have most of your team under restraint. So that's a very dangerous thing. Nandi herself has 4,200,000 HP, and the Golem has 3 million. So, like before, it's still the 7,200,000 you have to go through, but it's split between two enemies. And in the case of Ragnarok, same stuff, only they deal more damage. And it is 12 million for Nandi and 9 million for the Golem. So that's still the 21 million you usually would fight. Now, the catch is this. Regardless of the difficulty on Expert or Ragnarok, Nyarlathotep is hard to pronounce her name, but apparently she had placed a debuff on both of them. So they will be taking damage over time regardless. Now that's only a measly 7,500 per turn, but it still eventually adds up. But keep in mind that if you're aiming for participation points, this is siphoning away from that. The longer the fight goes, the less participation points you can get. So keep that in mind. But the main gimmick of this fight is definitely trying to get rid of that Golem first and foremost, because restraint is easily the worst of it. Or at the very least, get it into raging so it doesn't put restraint on your party. In the case of Nandi, I would say keep her out of raging, because you don't want her to buff the damage everybody takes, so that's something to keep in mind. Having some cleanse would actually help with this fight, because you can remove debuffs off yourself, and maybe some buff removal as well. And if you happen to have certain characters, you can really draw that out of your team as well. They say the new Soul character actually is like the new version of Soul is actually good for this fight, and to be quite honest, I think she is, because she has a cleanse along with a heal, and then she can also buff your output by basically giving everybody burst gauge. So if you happen to get the limited version of Soul, then she can actually be pretty useful for this. Just keep in mind not to use fire against them unless you're insanely strong with fire. And if you want the advantage, of course, thunder. Now, trying to get all the rewards. The SSR stuff, you basically get that at 50 Divine, 55 Devil. There's 22 Gacha tickets, you get that at 140 Divine and 82 Devil. If you want the Dragonic Eye Shards, that's at 200 Divine and 90 Devil. You want all the Magic Jewels, that's 225 Divine and 95 Devil. And if you just want to grab everything, that is 250 Divine and 100 Devil. And as a reminder, Devil can only be obtained from Ragnarok. Everything else drops Divine, so if you really want to, you can clear out the entire Divine list off of Standard. Now, here's where we go over the things that you probably want. I will say this out the gate. Unless you really need placeholders for a specific grid, do not worry about any of the weapons, including the SSR weapon. The SSR weapon is a large assault. At this stage of the game, that's pretty easily overlooked, especially given the Guardian add-on. So, don't worry about the gun. Don't worry about the special sword, or as they call it, special sword. It's glaive for us. Excuse me. Don't worry about the glaive. Don't worry about the gun. Don't worry about the hammer. Don't worry about the bow. None of the weapons, in my opinion, are worth it. They're just filler if you happen to need them for, say, a Phantom Grid, or if you're starting off in the game, maybe get the SSR weapon, but you won't need them, and you'll end up replacing them even if you do get them. The main thing you're going after for this event is definitely Nandi herself, because of the fact that she's got very good stuff across the board. Her attack power is almost 2,000, and that's generally considered a good point to be at. Her main effect will increase water elemental attack by 40, and elemental is highly valued for add-ons. On top of this, she will also increase your chances of doing triple attack. That is very, very good, because if you're going to increase any sort of combo rates, triple attack is the one you want to focus on first and foremost. On top of this, if you summon her mid-fight, she will give burst gauge to all your team. So, between her base stats, her main effect, and her summon effect, those are all good. Do not skip out on Nandi. you do want her. Now, as for the missions, it's the same stuff as before. You have to clear 3 times by starting a raid, clear 3 times by jumping into somebody else's. You can do those daily, get some energy seeds, some half elixirs. It will give you some refill items. As far as it goes with the missions where you have to do things on your own, always are rarity Kamihime for expert. It never changes. What does depend on the element of the raid event, though, is the Ragnarok quest, and in this case it's wind. Doesn't matter if you use R, SR, or SSR. You can use any Kamihime you want for this mission as long as they are wind. And quite frankly, wind can be very, very tanky, so you may not have any trouble at all for clearing this. In fact, I had just recorded a video of me doing that before recording this video, so expect that pretty soon. Speaking of which, before I close out this video, 2 things I gotta mention. One, I did indeed record the next batch of info for the Kamihime that I'm going through, because I'm trying to go through all of them, basically. That should be up pretty soon. Along with that, I just mentioned solo video with Wind Kamihime against Ragnarok Water Nandi. So expect that pretty soon as well. One big thing I have to point out though, this half AP event that we have, it is for all the SP quests, which is pretty much element quests, as it's officially called. The fact that we now have Ragnarok in the game changes a lot of different stuff. Ragnarok guarantees at least 5 fangs every time you run it. And considering the fact that every single element is open and you can do all the Ragnaroks, as in all 7, do that every single day. That is something that you can easily abuse. Now, after that, you can just pick whatever one you want and grind out the ultimate plus, because you can only do Ragnarok once a day, but since all 7 are open, you get 7 Ragnarok runs a day, basically. Which is 1 per element, and then a random one can throw whatever at you as well. Fangs are one of the hardest things in the game to maintain. I cannot stress that enough. So, definitely grind those fangs out. I even have to still grind out some stuff too, because my light fangs have gotten pretty low, and so is my fire. So, if you don't have at least 300 of each fang, you're probably going to need to grind more. Especially if you're really trying to get a 4th tier soul. The kicker is that Ragnarok SP, or Ragnarok Element Quest, whatever you want to call it, that only opens up if you are rank 101. So newer players are likely not going to see that. That's all the more reason to trying to get to around the rank 100, because not only you get the 4th tier souls, you get one of the best fang grind spots in the game, even though it's only once per day. But other than that, expect another version of the expect another part to the Kamihime videos coming up after I upload this next one, which should be part 2. I will be working on part 3, so keep that in mind. And lastly, I have to say, if there's any time to try and grind an event to get some refill items, it's definitely these raid events, because raid events give you a lot, and I do mean a lot, of energy seeds and half elixirs if you grind them out. So, that said, you will want to grind out these events, like, especially for the +1 items too, because you can get quite a few of those. And if you're lucky, you'll get extra copies of Nandi, because she's very good to have in sub-slots. If you get a lot of Nandi, you can get a lot of burst gauge refill. So that's something to keep in mind. But anyways, that's all for this. More of this is going to come soon. Like I said, 2 more videos should be on the way on top of this. I'm going to try and space them out a little bit, so they won't seem all lumped together. But over the course of the next 24 hours, expect those videos out, along with an accessory quest video just to test out Light Shiva, because I just recently got her and I really like her. But anyways, that's all for this. More of this will come soon, and take care.